Biomagnification. The concentration of toxins in an organism as a result of its ingesting other plants or animals in which toxins are more widely dispersed. The beginning of biomagnification occurs when zooplanktons feed on the phytoplankton. Once they feed on them, they absorb POPs that was bioaccumulated from the phytoplankton. This then continues along the food chain in the marine life. After the zooplanktons feed on the phytoplanktons, it then goes along to other fish in the sea like herrings. When the herrings feed on the zooplankton, the toxins biomagnify in the herring due to the constant buildup of toxins in the zooplankton and the toxins already in the herring. This then continues along the food chain. The biomagnification continues on to land due to the diets of land species. An example can be a seagull feeding on a herring. The toxins of the herring then passes on to the seagull, thus biomagnifying the toxins in the
Bioaccumulation.
seagull. This then continues
Bioaccumulation
along the food
occurs at the
chain with
base of the
toxins
food web.
biomagnifying
This usually
each time
begins
a
within the
predator
primary
eats a
producers.
prey.
Phytoplankton are microscopic organisms that are photosynthetic and absorb POPs directly from the seawater. POPs can also be known as persistent organic pollutants. Mercury is an example of the toxin. The non-biodegradable toxins then build up in their tissues due to them absorbing the POPs at a faster rate than they can metabolize.
Depression is a mental health disorder which causes an increase in negative thoughts and a decrease of motivation and interest in activities. Etiologies are responsible.
It's okay, just do it again. There you go.
Etiologies are factors that are responsible or related to the development of certain disorders. Biological factor that contributes to the onset includes genetics, which are inherent factors. In reference to cognitive factors, such as the cognitive triad, it explains the cognitive thoughts of people that are suffering from depression having negative thoughts about themselves and the world and about the future. Social cultural factors such as the vulnerability theory, which connects stressful life events with an increased risk of depression. The study that uses the biological etiology of genetics is a studying point in their experiment is one done by Casper. Since genetics are an inheritance factor, if a family member has been diagnosed with depression, it could mean that there may be a predisposition in the family to be diagnosed with depression. This does not mean that every family member
Effects of biomagnification. It has impacts on human health. Humans become more prone to cancers, liver and kidney failure, respiratory disorders, birth defects, brain damage, and heart diseases. This is caused due to the biomagnification of mercury and other non-biodegradable toxins. Diseases like hepatitis and cancer can develop due to frequent consumption of seafood that have a lot of mercury. Reproduction and development of marine creatures. Various toxic chemicals and elements accumulate in the organs of various aquatic creatures. This affects their reproduction and development. Eagles' eggs had thinner shells, thus resulting in them killing their newborns due to crushing their eggs while sitting on them.
One of the most embarrassing instances that highlights the issue with bioaccumulation would be the time when our nation's bird, the bald eagle, had significantly decreased in its population as a result of a toxin known as DDT. DDT is an organochlorine insecticide that was firstly synthesized in 1874, quickly becoming a villainously effective pesticide that our country began utilizing for insect control. Farmers used it on crops and even buildings to control pests. However, DDT's popularity stems not only from its effectiveness, but also from how inexpensive it was to manufacture and its everlasting effects on the environment. Little did we know these effects would significantly impact one of the nation's most loved species, as individuals soon realized that this, although relatively microscopic toxin, would quickly become one of the nation's most gargantuan mistakes as it dominates the well-being of nature itself. As DDT was being thrown around aimlessly in the United States, the bald eagles began accumulating the toxin within their fatty tissues. Although initially overlooked, one of the breakdown products in DDT began causing a thinning of eggshells in birds. This issue was not observed until the reproductive rates of the nation's bird began to significantly drop, as the bald eagles would end up crushing their eggs during any attempt at incubation, resulting in mass embryo deaths. With this and other horrible instances occurring, DDT was quickly realized to have been doing more harm than good, persisting in ecosystems, accumulating quickly in fatty tissues, and overall causing a decline in the numbers of our nation's bird. It was finally canceled in 1972 by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, but did we wait too long? This is what defines bioaccumulation, where even something as small as pesticide can exhibit colossal impacts upon species that occupy higher positions on the food web over time.
We have to make lifestyle changing choices. Be mindful to what we throw away, such as electronics, or even when doing oil changes. The regulation of the toxins that are what build up in organisms, such as the regulation of pesticides. Example of one would be that of the EPA banning the use of DDT. Restoration by means of placing species that have been harmed to be put into conservation, such as bald eagles being put into conservation to help their population grow. Restoration can be tricky with bioaccumulation and biomagnification because unlike some forms of pollution or degradation, there is exploitation occurring in the anatomy of these organisms, laced within their tissues and bodies. One cannot simply take out or clean out these systems because they are internal and so carefully integrated within the animal's bodily functions and food webs. This means that regulation in altering human activities is more significant than ever to preventing